Hi, friends, and welcome to the inaugural episode of Nomen Dubium. Oh my god, cue the applause. Luigi, please applaud. Yeah. He's not applauding. Welcome. I am so happy you guys are here. Welcome to episode 0 of the podcast. I'm not going to call this episode 1 because this is the trial run, and if things are bad, and if this is pee pee poo poo, sorry, pardon my French, this is my podcast, I will curse. If this is cock on wee whiz, I will just re-record it and you know, do the same topic but do it later. But that is why this is episode 0. This is the trial run. Welcome. If you don't know who I am, hey, thanks for showing up. My username is a little confusing, I know, and that's a reason why I wanted to get this episode out sooner or later, because a lot of people cannot find me, because I admit dog meat frog legs is a fucking crazy username. I'm gonna get this out of the way. If you guys are wondering, there's no meaning behind it. When I was like 15, I was really into Soul Calibur 5. I was really into Soul Calibur 5, and I was one of the only 4 people that played it like online and competitively. And my username, for some reason, so I used to play that game like sun up to sundown. I was glued to the screen, glued to the PS4 playing Soul Calibur 5. And for some reason, my username came to me at like 4 a.m. on a 3-day long Soul Calibur 5 bender. And it just came to me, dog meat frog legs. And I still don't really know what it means. I still don't know why, but it's just like, it's been with me. It's got character. You know what I mean? So you are welcome to call me dog. Maybe one day I'll tell you my name. I don't know. Do I want my name on the internet though? That's the question. Now that out of the way, I can properly introduce myself. I am a PhD student in biological anthropology. Just a little credential check for you, just so you know where I'm coming from. My undergraduate degree is in history and anthropology, double major. My master's degree is also in history. And then I am now getting my PhD in biological anthropology. Long story of how we've gotten to this point, but here we are. I studied Neanderthals specifically. I study geographical variation in Neanderthals, and I also study Neanderthal and human interaction. So, I mean, I can talk about my own research at some point. Lord knows I will. I never shut up. But that's a little bit about me. This podcast is going to be basically what I do on my TikTok. So if y'all are not familiar, I think you are, but if you're not, on my TikTok, I make silly anthropology videos discussing all matter of anthropological conundrums, whether that be cultural or biological. I try to stick to biological because that is my training, but I have taken many courses in cultural anthropology as well. Also, I have worked as a field archaeologist for like 5 years, and I also do paleontology in the field. So I do a lot of stuff. I like the fucking dirt. Okay, sue me. And so I might talk about a wide variety of topics on here, but that's it's because it's my podcast and not yours. So that's what we're gonna do. Today, I thought that for episode 0, we would discuss human evolution. Let's just get into it. What even the frick are we doing here, bud? I think I'll make a video later on about anthropology as like a discipline, because I have gotten so many comments on TikTok about like people being like, hey, I Googled anthropologist and the only thing that came up was the wiki entry for unemployment. So like, what do you even do? And it's real. Anthropology is real, I promise. It's just not as real as maybe my parents want it to be, but it's real. Swear to God, it's real. I think I'll do that later. But I think because I do study human evolution, and because my very first subscriber, what up, asked for this video, I figured that I would do a little bit of a deep dive into human evolution. We'll talk about some primates, and we'll talk about kind of how we get from point A to point B, and we'll just have a jolly old time. Before I get started, please subscribe. Tell your friends if they like learning. I am trying to do this on YouTube. I know that like everything sucks nowadays. And so when it comes to like podcasts, I know some people were like, put it on Spotify. Well, I know some people don't want to use Spotify. So I'm going to try YouTube. I don't make money off of this also. So like subscribing is very sweet. I highly suggest that you do help me kind of get the word out. I'm just here to have a good time. I'm here to educate y'all. So without further ado, let's talk about human evolution. I am going to start by kind of letting you guys know how evolution came to be. I'm not going to do the full deep dive because that in and of itself is going to be an episode, but I want to just briefly cover kind of like the theory of evolution, where it comes from, and where we fit in all of this. Now, y'all probably know about Darwinism. You probably have heard of natural selection and things like that. I want to just very briefly touch on sort of like those evolutionary principles, because they're going to be really important as we go on, and I want us all to have the same foundation. So when we talk about natural selection and survival of the fittest and all of these different, kind of buzz phrases when it comes to anthropology, I'm going to be really honest with you all. They're just common sense. They truly are just common sense. And the reason why I say that is because, obviously, as y'all know, sometimes folks don't like evolution. Now, I will say, just like first and foremost, I was raised creationist. Obviously, I am no longer. But I was raised creationist. I was raised not to believe in evolution. I literally, when I went to college, my grandfather, who raised me, looked me dead in the eye, put his hand on my shoulder, and he said, "Dog meat, frog legs, real name. When you go to college, stay away from anthropologists because they are all communists and liars." Direct fucking quote. Also, mic drop. He's got a fucking point. Come on. Anyway, so there are many people who don't like evolution because they do not understand it. But when evolution is explained properly, it's common sense. Like, truly, it is common sense. So let's start with survival of the fittest. What does that even mean? Survival of the fittest does not mean survival of the most perfect or survival of the strongest or whatever. Survival of the fittest refers to what we call biological fitness or evolutionary fitness. And that just means, can you fuck? Are you spreading genetic information? And are you good at it? That's all it means. Because in evolution and in evolutionary biology, the purpose of life is to spread genetic information. That is the purpose of life. Now, when I say that, I don't want to be like, your only job here is to have babies. Like, that's not what I mean. That's not what anybody means when they say that. And if they do, they're a biological essentialist. And I have a whole episode planned about that. But what I mean by that, friends, is like, according to biology, things reproduce in order to spread genetic information, and that's kind of just like the main goal of life is just, you got to get your genes out there, right? We want to make sure that our genetic information is going to survive, so we reproduce. Survival of the fittest means that the ones that are fucking the most and successfully doing so and passing those genes on, they are the ones that are surviving, which again is common sense. This is what I really mean when I get down to like evolution is just common sense. You don't have to be afraid of it. Is like when it comes to survival of the fittest. Yeah, if you are fucking a lot, okay, your genes are passing on. Therefore, you are not dying. Do you see what I mean? And if you die before you can reproduce, then your genes don't go anywhere. And therefore, they don't impact evolution as a whole. Again, survival of the fittest. I mean, it's simple stuff. Okay, next thing, natural selection. Now, this is about traits being selected for, and that again is a process through reproduction. So traits are things like, for example, bipedalism is a trait, walking on two legs. But you can make this as simple as just like, what's a good trait? Being able to digest milk, right? Being able to digest lactose, whatever. That is a trait, okay, that some people have. If that helps you survive to reproductive age, if, for example, let's say that you live in a pastoralist community in Northern Europe, and there's not a lot of fresh vegetables, and the winters are hard, and, you know, meat is scarce, but you can drink milk and you can eat cheese. If you can do that, it's going to give you more calories, which is going to help you survive. And so if you survive to then reproduce, you know, according to this theory, the fact that you were able to eat milk and survive, that trait is going to be maybe passed on to the next generation. Sometimes it is not passed on directly. Sometimes it takes, like, it skips a little bit. Genes reshuffle. That's kind of like the point. But do you see what I mean? Do you see what I mean? If it helps you fuck, it's going to get passed on. If it does not, it will not get passed on because you would have died. Great. Awesome. These are just some of the concepts that I think we just really need to get out of the way first and foremost before we jump into these things. It's just super, super important. And natural selection is based upon the environment. It's based upon the environment that you are in, right? The environment that you are living in. If you are, for example, if you're like an Australopithecine and you live in a gallery forest, you may be bipedal, but you may maintain some arboreal traits. And that's not to say, you know, that like being arboreal is going to inhibit you from reproduction. But it's not like being bipedal is what's making you able to reproduce. You see what I mean? All right, we can hound on that later. But what I want us all to keep in mind is that when we talk about these evolutionary processes, when we talk about evolution, a lot of times people think that they only apply to animals, and they get really comfortable with like, oh, this is an animal thing. They do not want to think about it applying to humans. And that's the creationist conundrum, my friends. So we're going to talk about all of this. We're going to talk about how it relates to humans. I'm going to do kind of a brief zoom through early primate evolution. I'm going to be honest with you, while I am a paleoanthropologist, my specialty is on human evolution, not on full primate evolution. So I know these guys very basic, you know, in a very basic fashion. So we'll run through them. But we need to know, when do primates even show up? When do we even get a primate? Believe it or not, I mean, you can guess. You can clock in your answers now if you want. I'm going to tell you, though. Okay, so believe it or not, the very first primates evolved around like 65 million years ago. Now, if that number sounds familiar to you and you're going, 65 mil? Yeah, that's because that is the end of the Cretaceous period, and that is when dinosaurs went extinct. Roughly, right? The dinosaur extinction is a little bit more complicated. Fuck, I could do a video on that. Episode, podcast, whatever. You understand. So, at the very end of the Cretaceous period, we don't know exactly when. The dates are very hard like that. Geologic time is not going to give us, you know, like, oh, primates show up April 22nd of, yeah, it's not that accurate. But approximately 65 million years ago, the plesiadapiforms, which are the first archaic primates, roll onto the scene. That's where we first see them in the fossil record. Now, these guys are little, they're rat-sized, they're very cute, and they're going to be the original primate, which is pretty awesome. They're kind of like little squirrel rat looking guys. And funnily enough, the first one, his name is Purgatorius, which, by the way, sick fucking name. Like, actually sick fucking name. And a lot of the postcranial material we get from these little guys is from Montana and Wyoming, which is crazy to me because I dig in not in Montana. I dig in Wyoming for dinosaurs sometimes. And dude, next time I go out, everyone else can be putzing around looking for fucking T-Rex. I'm going to be looking for a plesiadapiform. I'm going to be looking for Purgatorius. Fucking sick. Now, the most important thing from these early primates is that they're arboreal, meaning they live in trees, which is super important because it shows us that being arboreal is like, it's a primate trait from the very beginning, okay? Keep that in mind when we discuss us. Great. Now, I'm going to run through the rest. That's going to be in the Paleocene. The Eocene, which is around 55 million years ago, that's where we get the first European primates. This is where we get the haplorins, pretty sweet. In the Oligocene, which is 33 million years ago, we get the early catarrhines, which is the precursors to monkey and apes. This is also, primates at this time are going to be looking pretty lemur-ish. They're not going to be looking like chimps. They're not going to be looking like gorillas. They look pretty lemur-y. They're arboreal. They have big eyes, but they do have the post-orbital bar. That's a little fun anatomy thing that primates have. And then eventually, my friends, we're going to get to the Miocene. And the Miocene is around 23 million years ago to 5 million years ago. And this is where we properly get the first monkeys and apes and the first human hominoid-like things, which we will discuss. But the Pliocene, y'all, that is where shit gets real. The Pliocene is where shit gets crazy. That's where our lineage really pops off. We make it home. Now, I think now's like the best time to discuss the last common ancestor theory and a big misunderstanding that people have when it comes to human evolution. This is something I grew up my entire life, like hearing my family say. We're going to discuss why this is a problem. Now, you have probably heard that we are most closely related to chimpanzees. You may have even heard that we have a last common ancestor with them. Like this, you may have heard all this, which is excellent because that is how it worked. But some people misunderstand this and they say, oh, well, I'm not descendant from a chimp. Correct, Susan. You are not descended from a chimp. I'm so proud of you. Yippee. No, you're not. But people don't really seem to understand what that means. And this is where the creationists get lost. And this is like, for example, my grandfather, this is where he was like, no, I don't buy that. My grandfather like allowed me to believe in dinosaurs and like took me to dinosaur museums. But when it came to like an Australopithecine, I could tell that story sometime. I won't right now. It's not important right now. Anyway, what I mean when I talk about the last common ancestor and what anthropologists mean is that approximately 7 million years ago, there was an ape. Okay, there was an ape. This ape was not a chimpanzee, nor was it a human. It was something else, right? And from this ape, 2 lineages or more, but 2 distinct lineages evolved that would eventually, over the course of 7 million years, evolve into our lineage and the lineage to modern day chimpanzees. This is so fucking important because what I need y'all to get is that modern day chimpanzees are just that. They're modern animals. They are just as evolved as we are. They have been evolving for the same amount of time that we have, okay? Just because they don't have iPads and like fucking McLarens and sports betting doesn't mean that they're not fully evolved animals, okay? In the same way that we are, the same amount of time, okay? So yeah, when people say, well, I'm not related or I'm not descendant from a chimp, no, you're not, because Pan troglodytes is a fucking modern day animal. Okay. Now that that's out of the way, let's really get into kind of our lineage just a little bit, and let's start with the Australopithecines because that's where it truly begins. You may have heard of the Australopithecines before. They're probably something you might be familiar with. You may have heard of Lucy. You may have even heard of the Tong child, if you know ball. The Australopithecines are going to be our earliest ancestors. And the coolest thing about them and what makes them so very special is that they were bipedal. They were fully bipedal. This is a big deal. So chimpanzees, gorillas, orangutans, monkeys, they are not bipedal, okay? They do not walk on 2 legs. They are, the term is like knuckle walker. It's called brachiation. Knuckle walker just sounds like an insult, so I just like don't use it very much, but it's called like brachiation, but they're quadrupeds, right? They are on 4 limbs. Now, yes, a chimpanzee can get up on 2 legs, but it's very uncomfortable and it's not what the animal habitually does. And when we say habitually, we mean like Okay, so for example, I'm sitting down, right, at a desk. If I was gonna stand up and walk, would I stand up and walk on all fours, or would I stand up and walk on two legs? That's what I'm talking about, right? Same thing. My cat is laying on my lap. If he gets up and walks around, is he going to jump off my lap and walk around on two legs? No. Although I wouldn't be surprised. This guy's fucking weird. He's a quadruped, so he's going to get up and walk on four limbs. Now, like, again, it's not that they can't, it's just that, like, what do they do habitually? What are they evolved to do? And this is a special love note that goes out to those, like, weird alpha male, like, gorilla influencers. Do you guys know the ones I'm talking about? The ones that are, like, primal. Like, they go they go to, like, the woods and they pretend to be gorillas, but, like, not in a furry way. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? I hope not. Yeah, no, we're not evolved to do that. We are bipedal, and we have been for 4 million years. Anyway, so that's where the Australopithecines become so important. Now, here's the other crazy thing about the Australopithecines, is that some of them, like the robust Australopithecines, may not even be related to us at all. They may have been just a sister lineage that evolved and then fucking died. Sorry, I need water. Ooh. So that's really, really cool. So let's start. I'm going to cover just a few of, like, their traits, and then I'll cover a few of them. But let's start with bipedalism and how we see it in the Australopithecines. We see it most notably, I think the best example is in Australopithecus africanus from Sterkfontein in South Africa. We have a beautifully preserved pelvis. We also have some pelvic remains from, others like Afarensis, like Lucy. And what these pelvic remains show us is they have, like, the anterior tilt that our pelvis has. The position of the foramen magnum is a little bit, I'm so sorry, the foramen magnum's on the skull. My bad. I meant the acetabulum. I promise I know what I'm talking about. The position of the acetabulum, which is the socket that your hip joint slots into, that the head of your femur slots into. The position of the acetabulum is kind of in this weird zone of being, like, not fully ape-like, but more closely to our own. And the really cool thing is that they got a little bit of a limit to the size of their birth canal. Not as much as ours, but more so than an ape, which is really cool. They also have a shorter sacrum, which is another sign of bipedalism. They have this really beautiful bowl-shaped pelvis from that anterior tilt, which is what we have. Now, to talk about the foramen magnum, from some skulls that we have seen that their foramen magnum is, which, if you don't know, the foramen magnum is the hole that your spinal cord sticks out of. It literally translates to big hole in Latin. It's what they used to call me in college. But the foramen magnum is the hole your spinal cord sticks out of. And in animals that are quadrupedal, it's towards the back of the head, right? Like, if you think about a cat or a dog, right, where their neck comes out of is the back of their head. But in us and in bipedal animals, the foramen magnum is on the bottom. Like in, oh my God, the Australopithecines, they have a human-like, quote-unquote, foramen magnum, which is so fucking sick. They have a couple other traits associated with bipedalism. For example, their toes. They don't have the ape toe. They don't have an opposable big toe. That's pretty fucking sick. Now, their toes are a little bit weird. They're not, like, fully smushed together like our abominations are. But they are disconnected a little. It's really fucking sick. Now, the ancestor, like the earliest Australopithecine, we're still trying to work that out. It may be Australopithecus anamensis, which was discovered in Kenya, in 1995 by Maeve Leakey. And Anamensis is a really interesting individual because we have a lot of fossil remains of Anamensis, but a lot of it is teeth. Like, we have enough to confidently suggest that we have 74 individuals of Anamensis, but they're mostly like teeth and maxillas and mandibles, and one skull, which is really exciting. That was actually, like, just recently published on, which is so fucking cool. The reason I'm bringing up Anamensis is because Anamensis most likely most likely, is the direct ancestor to Australopithecus afarensis, which afarensis is probably the most famous of the Australopithecines, because if you have heard of Lucy, she is an Australopithecus afarensis. She is not the holotype of afarensis. If you know what a holotype is, it's the type specimen. The type specimen is considered your like best example, and anytime that you discover another fossil, you have to compare it to the holotype to distinguish it as that taxa, right? Lucy is a fucking brilliant fossil. She is why I'm studying this. And believe it or fucking not, she's not the holotype. She's a paratype. And I learned a drama about that, but I don't know if I'm allowed to share it. It's a long story. Anyway, but the Australopithecines, they're bipedal. They maintain some arboreal ability, so they may have been able to live in trees, just not like all the time. And when I say live in trees, I'm like, they may have slept in trees. They may have gone up into the trees to eat, but they are walking over land, absolutely walking over land. I mean, especially in like Ethiopia and Kenya, they're just walking all over the damn place. So yeah, they maintain some arboreal traits, but they're bipedal. It's fucking beautiful. Other things about the Australopithecines that I can think of off the top of my head is that the robust Australopithecines, which are pretty freaking cool, like Australopithecus robustus, right, for one, they are probably not related to us. Now, the reason why they're called the robust Australopithecines is because of their faces and their teeth. They have what's called megadontia. Megadontia is just Latin for big tooth. They have fucking huge molars because they, presumably with those big ass molars, ate really, really hard foods, which is, real. They ate really tough foods. They also had very flat faces, and they had a sagittal crest. A sagittal crest is a piece of bone on the very top of the head. So on the top of your skull, you have a suture. You can't see it because you have skin, presumably. I don't know how you live, but where your occipital bone and where your frontal bone and your parietal bones kind of fuse right down the middle is your sagittal suture, right? It's a suture right down the middle of your head. The sagittal suture does meet with the occipital bone in the back, but the frontal bone, so it's more important there. Now, in animals that have a sagittal crest, that suture is like a bony protrusion that goes right up. Good examples of this would be gorillas, saber-toothed tigers, they have one too, or saber-toothed cats, right? Now, the sagittal crest acts as like an extra bit of surface area for the temporalis muscle. So actually, we're going to do something fun. And I can't make you do this, but I hope you're following along. Take your fingers, right, and put them on your temple. Put them right by your eye and open your mouth. Do you feel the muscle? If you press in, you feel the muscle move? That right there, my friends, is your temporalis muscle. It's the muscle that controls your jaw. And in modern day humans, it stops there. But in our ancestors and in Australopithecus robustus and in gorillas and like things that have a sagittal crest, that muscle doesn't stop at that level. It keeps going, which gives surface area to the muscle. So they had a hard bite. Sorry, that was nerdy as fuck, but it's, pretty fucking cool. So those are the Australopithecines. They lived roughly like 3 million, or around like 4.17 to 3-ish million years ago. Is when we see them. They may have had some overlap with the genus Homo as well. We're still trying to figure out, they definitely had overlap with the genus Homo. We're trying to figure out who did, though, is the hard part. But they're really cool. They lived for a really long time, and we have a ton of them. It's awesome. It's fucking sick. Now I think we can get a little bit into the genus Homo. Okay. So the genus Homo, this is where it gets pretty cool, pretty crazy. So the very first Homo, we're trying to figure that out. Maybe your mom. Kidding. Did she like that? Sorry, I'm like trying not to make as many jokes, but I also I'm unironically a giggly little goober. And if I don't make a bunch of jokes, I don't know why I would try to not make jokes. I want you guys to learn, but I'm also come on, man, I'm funny. I'm not. I'm funny. Okay. Anyway, so the first Homo, we're trying to kind of figure out who that may be. If you ask me, which I know that you're not, but if you ask me, I actually think that Australopithecus sediba should be attributed to the genus Homo. I said it. I fucking said it. I think that Australopithecus sediba should actually be Homo sediba, but nobody listens to me and nobody likes my opinion. I could make a whole fucking episode on why I believe that. So right now, what we agree on is Homo habilis most likely is going to be one of the first, or at least the earliest homos that we know of, discovered by the Leakeys back in the Dizzy. If you guys know the Leakeys, I could also make an episode on them. I have so much information on them. Now, Homo habilis, it has a really cool name. His name means handyman because Homo habilis is the first hominid that's attributed to stone tool production, or at least like things that we can say, because there are some people who argue that the Australopithecines were able to use stone tools, and that honestly, I'm gonna be super real. They surely could have. Here's what we need to define as tools, though, because there are some primates like rhesus macaque monkeys that have been seen in the wild using rocks to like crack open nuts and eat them. Okay. That, according to my field, is tool usage, but it's not tool production. That's kind of where it comes, because tool production requires certain neural pathways in the brain, and it also requires you to have a very specific hand. Like stone tool production, flint knapping, literally, like, your hand anatomy has to be a certain way, because you need the precision grip and the power grip. These are two grips that we have, that hominids have, that apes do not. So this is kind of a crazy fucking thing. But anyway, so this is where we get the Oldowan tool industry. These are the oldest tools that we know of, named after the Olduvai Gorge, and they're from roughly like 2.5 million years ago. Homo habilis also was about 2.5 million years ago, 3 million years ago. The date's a little muddy in my humble opinion. But that's kind of the coolest thing about Homo habilis, is now we have this fully bipedal, again, we've been fully bipedal since the Australopithecines. We have this fully bipedal hominid that is living outside, as far as we know, outside of the gallery forests, is less capable of being arboreal, and is out here making tools, which is sick as fuck, right? And again, when I say making tools, creationists are like, ain't no way Homo habilis had a fucking DeWalt impact driver. Yeah, no, it's a rock. But the matter is, it's shaping the rock to have a certain function. That is a big fucking deal, right? So Homo habilis and Oldowan tool production is just so exciting and so interesting. And from this, we can also kind of look at maybe what they may have been eating, because we can also look at their teeth, but they may have been eating big ass animals. Not as big as, we'll see later with some other examples, but they may have been eating like pretty big ass animals. But keep in mind, this is during a time period in the Pliocene, and in the Pleistocene, when our ancestors are sharing space with hyenas and lions and big ass wolves and tigers and shit. Like, it's a crazy time to be alive. And so the fact that our like ancestors, especially like Homo habilis, Homo erectus, and even the Australopithecines, that left the trees and left being arboreal, the fact that they were able to survive is such a big fucking deal. Because keep in mind, they're still relatively ape-like, but they're fully bipedal, they're walking around. Trees provide safety. Okay. There are many animals that can climb a tree, but there are also many that cannot. And so sleeping in trees provides safety. Climbing up in them to get away from predators provides safety. And also just like there's food up there, dude. And so this is a really, really big deal that you see our ancestors all the way back, 2.5 million years ago, manipulating stone tools and living away from trees. Dude, I can't express how like fucking cool that is. Like these are crazy sons of bitches. God, it's just really awesome. And with these tools, they're able to process more. And so this is where we think that a lot of like food processing truly began. We don't really know, as far as I am aware. Again, there's probably shit that I'm missing, but we're not entirely too sure how much meat Homo habilis is eating. It's not going to be very much. I'm going to tell you that right now. It's not going to be very much. They're mostly eating like wood, roots, tubers, grass, shit like that. But having tools does help for processing and especially processing meat. So that's an interesting thought, right? After is tough. Around a little bit after, we get Homo erectus. Whoa, big deal. It's just around 2 million years ago. Okay. And Homo erectus, what makes them so very special is they have bigger brains and their limb proportions are closer to our own. So when we look at the Australopithecines, they still have pretty like advanced prognathism. So prognathism is just the fancy science word for having a long snoot, right? It is the ratio, the measurement from the very back of your head to the front of your face, the longest part of the front of your face. In humans, we have really short prognathism, right? But like a horse is super fucking prognathic because it's all nose. When you look at the Australopithecines, they still have some snoot, right? But for Homo erectus, the snoot, I mean, it's there, but the snoot is not as snoot, which is a big deal. They also, they get like these really big, beautiful brows that I will just continue to gush over because it's a trait that remains for a long time. They have rounder skulls, but still like this more oblong, like football shape, big old cheekbones. God, they're just fucking gorgeous, y'all. They're just beautiful. Big ass brains. Just not in the same ways that ours is, but whatever, it doesn't matter. Yeah, no, they're just beautiful. And the really, really cool thing about them is that we see them leave Africa. What? Are you not so excited? Because here's the thing that I've mentioned, tangentially, but I've never said outright up until this point. All hominins evolved in Africa until Homo neanderthalensis. Okay. So, and we'll get there. But like we evolved in Africa, Homo erectus, Homo habilis, the Australopithecines, they all evolved in Africa, right? But Homo erectus left because we get them in Asia. This is such a big fucking deal. We get them in China. We get them in Indonesia. I mean, like, this is sincerely such a big deal because this is where we get into the idea of hominins as walkers, okay? So when we talk about the Australopithecines, I mentioned that they lived in gallery forests and that they were habitually bipedal, but they could have been arboreal if they choose. That means that in some way, they stay relatively close to trees. And we know, looking at the fossils that we have of them, they stay roughly within the Great Rift Valley, right, in East Africa. But the other ones, they move. And when we get to Homo erectus, this is where you see movement become such a big deal. And leaving Africa for the first time is huge, because to move that great of a distance, first of all, also keep in mind, it's not just like one group doing this. It's multiple groups and repeated waves of migration. But when you have to move that far of a distance, you need to be an efficient walker, right? You need to be good at walking. You can't suck at it. And that bipedal locomotion, like being that efficient, means that it's closer and closer to our, modern day form of locomotion, which is just so cool. This is also maybe around the time where we start to see some hair reduction, and things just around Homo erectus start looking a little bit more human. Like, I mean, truly, they just start looking more human, which we define human as anything in the genus Homo, first of all, in my opinion. So when we talk about Homo erectus, like, yeah, it's already human, but you know what I mean? It's already human. And they make it so fucking far. Homo erectus gets found in Java and Indonesia and China. I think I already said that, in Georgia as well, but also in Kenya, in Olduvai Gorge, in Tanzania. Are you kidding me? A worldwide fucking traveler, guys. This is such a big deal. This is so cool. The dating on this is crazy too. It's like the Peking man found in China was like 400,000 to 700,000 years ago. Like just I don't think you guys are, I don't know, if you are not familiar with like our evolution, like this is new information to you. The time is crazy. Geologic time is nuts, and human evolution looks at geologic time and fucking scoffs, because you have the Australopithecines that, you know, roll in the scene, whatever, 4 million years ago. Okay, from 4 million years to 1 million years, the amount of change that occurred in morphology truly is insane. We get the prognathism shrinking. We get better at being bipedal. We get a little bit more upright, right? Our feet change, our hands change, the neural pathways in our brains change that enable us to be able to process fucking stone tools. Like, what? That's crazy. That's crazy. Okay? That's crazy. It's just like, I cannot express to you how insane that is. Okay. So that's Homo erectus. Now, there's other homos that are not described as well. So I won't talk too much about them. One of them is Homo rudolfensis. Homo rudolfensis may have lived at the same time as Homo heidelbergensis, but some people don't think that rudolfensis was even, an actual member of our genus, or not even a member of our genus, rather. But some people don't think that it's a valid taxa, and that it's just like Homo habilis, but maybe it's like a variant, right? So there's some debate to be had there. Okay, I'm gonna talk about some of the more like fun ones for a second, because this is usually what people ask me about, because they're talked about in media and pop culture, but they're not discussed scientifically sometimes. So I want to talk about Homo floresiensis. You may have heard of this one. They nickname it the Hobbit. It's just a little guy. So this is a pretty recent discovery. They were discovered in 2003 in Indonesia. And I believe the holotype is a female skeleton, which is pretty sweet. Love it. Women in STEM. That's a silly fucking joke. They lived roughly 100 to 50,000 years ago. I think the first one, LB1, was dated at 80,000 years ago, which is so cool. Now, why is it called the Hobbit? Why do people give a shit about it? Well, first of all, it's small. They are a little small. They're roughly like, I think the holotype was 3 feet tall, 3 feet 6 inches, and they just had, they're just little, and that's okay. And that's okay. It is okay to be just little. Now, my favorite thing about them is that although they are little, they had stone tools. Okay, they were hunters. They ate shit. They may have even used fire. Okay, and also they shared space with mini elephants. Okay, not mini, I mean small elephants, right? And fucking giant ass Komodo dragons named, what are they called? They're called mega, oh shit, what is it called? I'm gonna be so mad at not knowing what this is called. I'm Googling it. I'm sorry, I'm Googling it. What are they fucking called? Okay, sorry. This is cringe. Fake podcaster Megalania is these giant ass Varanus priscus, giant ass Komodo dragons. Okay, so they had to share space with those, which, by the way, I don't know if you guys have seen a normal size Komodo dragon. I'd still call them fucking huge. And if I was 3 feet tall and I was going up against a bigger one, yeah, dude, that's crazy. We really love a Homo floresiensis here in this house. the reason why people are so, by the way, if you're wondering, like, so interested in them is because, one, it's kind of interesting that they are so small, but people misunderstand why. This is probably most likely a case of island dwarfism. This is just what happens. Islands are weird, and islands cannot fully support large animals because think about what lives on a fucking island, dude. Like, what lives on an island is what lives on an island. You know what I mean? And so when it comes to a lot of organisms that live on islands and evolve on islands, they're just small. So they don't take up a lot of space because it's a fucking island, right? If, like, think with me right now. If you had a small little atoll, a small little island, right? Like one of the Marshall Islands or something. And you put an animal the size of a fucking mammoth on it, the mammoth is going to eat all of its available resources and probably exhaust them in like a month. And the island itself is not going to be able to recuperate. But if you have like a tiny little pygmy elephant, well, fuck yeah. You see what I mean? You don't want to put this giant ass thing in a small enclosure. You want an enclosure that fits the size of the thing. So when it comes to Homo floresiensis, a lot of people are like, oh my God, they're little because of aliens. I swear to God, Ancient Aliens has already gotten their meaty little grippers on Homo floresiensis. I can tell. I know a lot of like TikTok conspiracy theorists have, but it's just island dwarfism. Be nice, okay? They're precious. I'm a big fan of them. They have slightly different features in terms of like their pelvis. I think their pelvis is a little bit more what we would call a primitive trait. It resembles more closely to Australopithecines, but that's fine, dog. That's okay. They're allowed. We love Homo floresiensis. We love them very, very much. Another one I want to spend a little time talking about real quick is Homo heidelbergensis. Homo heidelbergensis is also one of these kind of interesting ones that some people argue is not actually like its own species, and some people argue that Homo heidelbergensis should be attributed to something else, probably like Neanderthals or something. But the thing about them, though, is that they are older than Neanderthals. Some people have proposed that they're the direct ancestor to Neanderthals. They look very, very similar. I don't know. I think that they're pretty interesting. I would say that they're probably their own species. We have some very beautiful skulls of them. But the skulls that we have of them, I can't lie, they're pretty similar. They're pretty similar. Yeah, I don't know about that. Homo heidelbergensis did, however, this is kind of the important thing about Homo heidelbergensis is that they evolved most likely a descendant from Homo erectus or maybe Homo ergaster in the very, very early Pleistocene. And I do believe they evolved fully in Africa. And these are also something that made their way to Asia at some point, which is pretty sweet. I'm so sorry. I think they only made their way to the Near East and to Europe. But I don't know. It's kind of an interesting thought experiment. I think I'll talk about them more later. I just wanted to bring them up because they're a common one because they were discovered kind of a long time ago, but they're not, I don't know, like 1908 they were discovered. So they're a common name, but they're not as strong of a taxa as you may think. And with that, I'm going to ramble a little bit about the Neanderthals because they are what I study. This was all a ploy. This was one big ploy, this entire episode. What, we're at like fucking 49 minutes. All so that I could talk for another 6,000 minutes on Neanderthals. Haha. No. Okay. So Homo neanderthalensis. Okay. These are my guys. These are my guys. So I know a lot about them. So I'm really sorry. I'm going to be annoying about it. The Neanderthals, are so fucking cool. And also I need to make this point, like, pretty strict because it's one of those like things I get grumpy about. It is pronounced Neanderthal. Okay. Call me fucking pretentious. I don't care. It's not pronounced Neanderthal. I know it has a TH. Neanderthals were discovered in Germany, although technically the first one was discovered in Gibraltar, but it's whatever. They were discovered and described for the first time in Germany. At the time, in German, the standard spelling for the T sound, the hard T, was TH. Okay? But they changed it, and they took that shit away. And now, in this current moment, if you look at the word Neanderthal in German, they took the H out because it doesn't apply with like modern German spelling. Okay. We, as stupid ass English speakers, as ignorant English speakers, kept the H, and now we just confuse everybody. And now everybody pronounces it incorrectly, and it makes me really mad. It makes me so fucking mad. It's Neanderthal. Okay? Homo neanderthalensis. Neanderthal. Thank you very much. Okay, so Neanderthals. They roll up in the Pleistocene. They are a fully European and Eurasian, like Near East hominin. They did not evolve in Africa. This is crazy. They didn't evolve in Africa, which is nuts. They probably evolved. I mean, this is the hard part, right? Is like, where did they pop up? I would presume probably in the Middle East and the Levant and the Levantine corridor, but that's just a game theory. And they roll up, I believe the earliest note is 200,000 years ago, which is pretty bonkers. Now, the cool thing about Neanderthals, in my humble opinion, is they are so like us. You have no fucking idea. Now, keep in mind, this is also the Pleistocene. People commonly refer to this time period as the Ice Age, which is incorrect, but that's okay. Technically, we are in an Ice Age. We're in an interglacial right now. But they lived during a time in the Pleistocene in which the climate was highly variable. Now, you had the like interstadials and the interglacials, and you had these time periods of super cold, like average temperatures are dropped. You have ice sheets that are building land bridges and covering the majority of Europe at the time. But then you also have the warmer interglacials, where the temperature is a lot more normal compared to like what we would expect today, even though we've kind of dropped the fucking ball on treating the earth well. So they live in a time period in which the climate is just crazy, and there's land that they are able to walk around that does not exist anymore. Like, for example, there's ice sheets that were covering different areas they were able to walk around, but also just like lower sea levels in general meant land. Like, for example, England and France, they could just walk. They could just walk to England. They didn't have to fucking swim. They didn't have to, which is so cool. Which is so fucking cool. So Neanderthals had a very wide range. We find them all the way from the very, very, like northern part of Wales, down into the Iberian Peninsula. We see them in Spain and Portugal and Italy. We see them in Greece. We see them in Turkey. We see them all over the place. We see them in Palestine. Yeah, dude, we see them all over the damn place. It's really, really awesome. I also, here's a thing. We do see some in Russia and in Eastern Europe. However, this is a conspiracy theory I'm not going to get into. We see less than I think we should. And I think that is not because they didn't live there. I think that is distinctly a sampling bias. And I think it's because of, unfortunately, a lot of political conflicts in the Eastern European sphere as to why we don't see them there. But we should. I think we should. That we absolutely should see them there. Because we see them in fucking Siberia. What do you mean they didn't go through the rest of Russia? What do you mean they didn't go through the nicer parts of Russia? Yeah, bullshit. Anyway, Russia's going to find me for that. They're already listening. It's fine. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm sorry. That's just my humor. Anyway, so Neanderthals, you probably know them as caveman. You probably know them as like these fucking like hunched over club wielding, and all of that is because of one French motherfucker named Peyronie I mean, there's two French motherfuckers to blame, Boule and Peyronie. When the Neanderthals were first discovered, the first fossil is Neanderthal 1. It is the top of a skull, and they have these big, big, beautiful occipital torus, right? It's this big brow. Well, that trait is relatively derived, right? Like when we see it in like Australopithecines, we see it in like the other members of the genus Homo. We don't have it, okay? But we see it in older examples, and at the time, the Neanderthal was the first hominin ever discovered, okay? It was the first human ancestor discovered, which is so fucking cool, in 1849. Or, well, the first one was discovered in 1849. The first one described is in 1864, right? It is the first human ancestor discovered, and when they're looking at it for the first time, this is before full conversations of evolution is being had, okay? So they're looking at this and they're like, what the fuck is it? Right? They're not looking at it going, whoa, we found the missing link, or whoa, we found... No, they're looking at it still not fully having... This is before Darwin published on the origin of species, okay? So they're looking at it. They don't have a full understanding of evolution. They don't have Darwinism, and they absolutely do not know that human ancestry has a lineage. So they're looking at this, and one dude is like, and I'm genuine, this isn't me joking, one dude is like, this guy had fucking rickets. Like, one dude is looking at the skull, and he's like, we found, like, some medieval son of a bitch that's really sick. They're looking at it like they have no idea what they're looking at, right? They're like, it's just a weird-looking guy. But some people, particularly William King, he's the first British man to get his grubby little grips on it. Some people are looking at it, and they're like, this looks human, but it isn't. So cool. Now, later excavations will find more Neanderthals, and after Darwin published on the origin of species, more conversations will be had, more productive conversations will be had, and eventually, by 1909, we have some really sufficient work being done on Neanderthals, but they are products of their time, okay? The early 1900s and the late 1800s is one of the worst time periods in terms of just fucking everything, right? It's racist as hell. It's sexist as hell. It's just a rough time. You can thank the Victorians for that, but everyone was doing it. It's a rough time, okay? And anthropology is barely a science, and it's mostly eugenics. I'll make a whole episode on that. But you have really, really racist thought permeating science at the time. And so they're looking at Neanderthals, and they're finally gathering that, like, okay, this is probably a human relative or a human ancestor, but obviously, it can't be a white human ancestor. Because again, and at the time in the late 1800s, early 1900s, these, fucking dudes truly believed and tried to prove that different races were biological and that they were different species, which, as we know, and I'll make a fucking whole episode on that, which we know is not true, okay? But these guys were like, well, this is obviously not a white person ancestor. This could be an ancestor to other types of people because it looks not like a white guy from fucking England. Well, no, maybe because fucking Brentworth Pennyschmidt has a reduced chin due to his inbreeding, right? Like, maybe it's because the fucking the weak chin. I'm sorry, I'm sounding like Nick Fuentes. That's not what I mean. I just hate British people. I'm kidding. You can't see my face. Anyway, maybe it's because weak ass little fucking British people, though, are not looking at themselves properly, okay? But a lot of people were like, nah, Neanderthals are not white people ancestors, and they're subhuman, and they're monkeys. Okay, well, this would be a problem until this very day. If you've ever, like, regarded Neanderthals as lesser, if you've ever, like, ooga booga, if you ever, like, caveman them, I really hate to break it to you. It's, like, actually racist, and I'm sorry, like, it is. And it's just an outdated stereotype because Neanderthals are more like us than you would even fucking know. And a lot of people in my field don't even see Neanderthals as separate from human. They see them as like fully the same. But we'll get there. We have a lot. I got all day to talk about my guys. So, in the 20s in 1923, Marcelin Bulle publishes this fuck-ass book that I have next to me, which, let me get the title here. It is called, Les Hommes Fossiles. It is The Fossil Men. And in this book, Marcelin Bulle, who's a piece of shit, by the way, discusses everything we know about Neanderthals. And in this book, which is fully in French, I unfortunately can read it. In this book, he basically is like, listen, Neanderthals, they were hunched over. They couldn't walk fully bipedal like us. They had big, scary faces. They were stupid and dumb. They had, clubs and they smashed each other on the fucking head with it. It's every negative caveman stereotype you've ever heard. And Marcelin Bulle was like, yep, that's correct. I proved it. He. This would later be disproven time and time again, but nobody wants to listen to anthropologists. So nobody gave a shit. But yeah, les hommes fossiles, éléments de paléontologie humaine. Oui. And in this, Marcelin Bulle doesn't just talk about Neanderthals. He talks about early human as well. But in this, he has this, I opened right up to it. That's terrifying. He has a reconstruction of a Neanderthal. And it's particularly a reconstruction from La Chapelle-au-Sang, my apologies, that's feminine, which is a very, very famous Neanderthal. His nickname is the Old Man. And in this, homie's just fucking mean. Like, he's just so mean to them. I'm trying to see if I can find a quote, but I'd have to, oh, here we go. If anyone speaks French, by the way, I'm really sorry. I'm going to say a little and I'm translate it for you. Loin de pousser son travail dans une direction simienne, bestiale, ce qui eût été facile, l'artiste sera si impossible. Okay, whatever the fuck. Yeah, simien and bestial. He's saying that they're ape and beast-like, okay? Which, come on now. Let's be so honest with ourselves. They're not that bad. Anyway, but so this work comes out, and after that, everyone's like, okay, well, Neanderthals are stupid and dumb, and they're not human, and and Marcelin Bulle proved it for us. Great. Like I said, that would get disproven time and time again. Now, here's why I love Neanderthals, okay? Because I keep alluding to it, I'm going to really get into it. They are more like us than you know. Neanderthals, they had, stone tool technology, which was super fucking good. There was no reason to change it. They had Mousterian artifacts, Levospa, like they had all these really cool stone tool, like lithic technologies that just like lasted for fucking ever. Neanderthals traveled a lot. They were able to withstand the Pleistocene, which is a crazy, like I said, variable time period to be able to actually like withstand. They did not have projectile weapons. They had short range thrusting spears, and they had strong ass arms to be able to fucking use those things. And some people are like, oh, it's because they weren't advanced enough to figure out a spear. Abso-fucking, what are you talking about? They had spears. They were just so strong, in my opinion. I mean, like, that's not my opinion. They were so strong. They just fucking just get up there. Fuck it. So admirable. They definitely use fire, right? They ate more meat, we think, than other hominins, which is pretty cool because, again, there's not a lot of vegetation going on up there. And they're accomplished hunters and butchers. And what I'm studying truly for my dissertation is they buried their dead. Not all of them. This is work we're still studying. Again, this is what I'm doing my dissertation on, but they buried their dead. Some of them had burials, which are just so fucking beautiful. I'll do a whole myriad of work on that. But Neanderthals also interbred with Homo sapiens. Oh my god, the boy woke up. You want to say something in the mic? Okay, I think he's gonna eat it if I keep letting him do that. So Neanderthals and early Homo sapiens also interbred, y'all. You've probably heard people say like, I think 23andMe, they took all my data and all I got was that I'm a Neanderthal. I need to also just clear that up. You are not a Neanderthal. What they're testing for is, since we have sequenced the Neanderthal genome a few times, what they're looking for is allele frequencies that you share with Neanderthals, which may indicate ancestry. But it's not like I'm 23. Excuse me. It's not I'm 23% Neanderthal. No, it's 23% of your, that's a high fucking number, but it's like, 3% of your alleles have the same frequency as alleles found in the Neanderthal genome. See what I mean? We could talk about that later. But Neanderthals and Homo sapiens interbred. We have multiple examples of hybrid individuals that we've done with genetic testing. What is the Teshik? Or gosh, what is it? I'm such a Teshik. Oh shit. I'm failing. Teshik Tosh. This is an individual who is a Neanderthal, but also has like some fucking Homo sapien in him. Or I'm sorry, he's a Homo sapien that's got some Neanderthal in him, which is really fucking cool. We also have a young skeleton from Portugal. And he also had Neanderthal grandparents, but he's a Homo sapien, which has led some people to believe, maybe me, don't know yet, that Neanderthals and Homo sapiens are not a different species. I will make a whole episode on speciation. We'll talk about that. But y'all, we interacted, we interbred, we hung out. They had so much going for them. Unfortunately, the Neanderthals went extinct. However, I think it's maybe more of a pseudo extinction. I think they didn't just die. I think a lot of them evolved and just, of course you have some dying off, but there's I think they just probably evolved and interbred fully with Homo sapiens to where that genome just dissipated out. Those genes reshuffled and became integrated with ours. So anyway, and finally, I'll just give us a mention. Modern Homo sapiens, whatever. I mean, you guys know what we are. I can do a better. We're kind of running out of time. I didn't want this to be so fucking long, but what was I expecting? Truly, I'd love to fucking talk. Yes, Luigi. Early modern Homo sapiens, we roll up in Africa. Very important to note, we evolve in Africa around 300,000 years ago, give or take, right? Again, this is a very cool thing because you have different hominins living at the same time, roughly, kind of running around doing their own thing. We evolve. We're different though. We're very different. Archaic Homo sapiens is a term used to describe Homo sapiens that look a little bit more, quote unquote, primitive or look a little bit more like older relatives. Archaic Homo sapiens have kind of different head shapes, like larger head shapes. Some of them have pretty pronounced brows. But the traits are going to be very similar. Anatomically modern Homo sapien is what we call when you find a human and you're like, yeah, that motherfucker is a human. When anatomically modern Homo sapiens show up, they've already reached Europe. They're already making tools and weapons and clothes and shit, and burying their dead in very, very, very ornate ways. I'll do an episode on that too, I promise. But yeah, I'm going to leave it off there because I think there's a lot more to talk about with our history. I'm not going to get into now. And also this is an hour. Holy shit. That's crazy. My fake soda is cold. I meant warm. I'm stupid. I'm brain dead. Okay. All right, friends. I say it was brief. This was an hour, but this was a brief run through. There's a lot of things I had to miss. There's a lot of things I had to skip over. There's a lot of things I talked too long about. Whatever. What are you going to do? Sue me? You don't even know my real name. Anyways, thank you guys so much for listening. I'm going to leave it here. Next episode is going to be a little bit different. Like I said, this is episode 0. If this sucks, if I have to change this, if I have to do something to this, or God forbid, I sat down and recorded all of this for it to go nowhere, I made this distinctly like an easier topic for me to talk about because I can just refilm it or re-record. You know what I mean? So that is where we're going to leave off for the rest of the day. I hope you all learned something. Okay. I hope so. That'd be so cool. It'd be crazy if you didn't, because I sure did talk a lot. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments. I am a comment reader like you wouldn't fucking believe. It's because I'm anxious and I'm afraid people are going to talk shit about me. Be really fucking honest. So please put your questions in the comments. I will read every single one of them. I will answer, if I can, I will answer in the comments. Maybe I'll do like a small episode or something answering them live. Who knows? But please, if you do have any questions, please let me know. And if you have any ideas, if you guys want to see something, let me know. Let me know what you would like me to talk about. This is mostly for you. I do this for fun. I don't need to do this though. So, Luigi, do you want to say it in the mic? It's crazy when the microphone turns to him. He suddenly shuts up. But yeah, I do this for you. So if you guys want me to talk about anything, please let me know down in the comments. I will be happy to do all sorts of things. If you haven't subscribed already, please do that. That's very, very kind of you. Give me a like, give me a subscribe, shit like that. Tell your friends if they like podcasts. I don't know. I like podcasts. This has been Nomen Dubium. Thank you so much for listening.